You know, it's not enough that Eric Holder on his own violates his oath to uphold the Constitution. It's not enough that we have an Attorney General at the Department of Injustice who is rogue. Now he's encouraging the state attorneys general to conduct themselves like him, that is, unethically, unconstitutionally, as applies to their state constitutions in many respects. I've never seen anything like this in my life as a former chief of staff to an attorney general in the Reagan administration, Ed Meese. I have never seen anything like this. The silence by the Democrat Party just shows you they're all in. And never again can an elected Democrat or appointed Democrat condemn anybody for lawlessness. Never again. So Eric Holder's interviewed by the New York Slimes. Somebody named Matt Apuzzo, whatever. And he points out, this Matt Apuzzo, that 6 state attorneys general, all Democrats, have refused to defend bans on same-sex marriage, and it's highly unusual for the United States Attorney General to advise his state counterparts on how and when to refuse to defend state laws. But Mr. Holder said, when laws touch on core constitutional issues like equal protection, an attorney general should apply the highest level of scrutiny before reaching a decision on whether to defend it. And he said the decision should never be political or based on policy objections. Quote, said Holder, engaging in that process and making that determination is something that's appropriate for an attorney general to do. So now the attorney general, ladies and gentlemen, is the judge and jury. He will decide in advance of even a final court ruling what is and is not constitutional and whether or not he or she will comply with state law, state constitutions, federal law, or the federal Constitution. Have you ever heard of this before? No, you haven't. He's attempting to justify that which is indefensible. He should have his law license pulled, but instead, at the American Bar Association each year, they'll parade him around as an example of a great man. Then Holder cites the landmark decision Brown versus Board of Education in 1954, ending public school segregation, even more compelling integration. He said, if I were Attorney General in Kansas in 1953, I would not have defended a Kansas statute that put in place separate but equal facilities. Now, I thought that was an interesting comment. So we went back to an interview that Barack Obama gave on MTV, November 2, 2008, hap tip to my buddy Hugh Hewitt. And I want you to hear what Barack Obama said about this core constitutional issue under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, in which Holder compares it to Brown versus Board of Education, which ended segregation in public schools. What did Obama think about same-sex marriage in November 2008, less than 6 years ago? Cut 11, go.
What is your reaction to Proposition 8, and would you vote yes or no on it? And for our audience, Proposition 8 is the California State Ballot Initiative to amend the state constitution to ban gay marriage.
You know, I've stated my opposition to this. I think it's unnecessary. You know, I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. And I'm not in favor of gay marriage. But when you start playing around with constitutions just to prohibit somebody who cares about another person, it just seems to me that that's not what America's about.
All right, this is incomprehensible except for the part where he states emphatically, I believe marriage is between a man and a woman, and I'm not in favor of gay marriage. Eric Holder said that this issue is as big as Brown versus Board of Education, the case that ended segregation in our public schools and promoted integration. Is Eric Holder telling me that about 5.5 years ago, Barack Obama was a bigot? How else do you square this circle? If Eric Holder is comparing Brown versus Board of Education to the issue of same-sex marriage, the Equal Protection Clause under the 14th Amendment, which, by the way, the Supreme Court's never ruled in the case of same-sex marriage. It may get there, don't get me wrong. Unfortunately, in Men in Black, I suggest that that's where they're heading, but they haven't gotten there yet. So is Barack Obama a bigot? Was he a bigot when he said these things? Well, how can it be that people say the same thing today and they're considered homophobic and bigots? Unless Obama was the same thing 5.5 short years ago, even less than that, because he changed his position about 2 years ago. But even more than that, I want to underscore the point. The United States Supreme Court has not ruled, not yet, that the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment applies to same-sex marriage. That's a decision that Eric Holder has made. But Eric Holder doesn't get to make that decision. He's not on the Supreme Court. He's not in the majority. They haven't ruled that way. He's simply the Attorney General of the United States. But he apparently has appointed himself the roving single justice in this country who's going around telling everybody what's moral and not, what's ethical and what's not. And I will say this, whatever your position on this issue, this man is unethical. Because not only is he conducting himself in a lawless manner himself for political and policy reasons, without the Supreme Court backing, but he's now urging the states to do exactly the same thing. And 6 Democrat attorneys general have done just that. The Attorney General of Wisconsin, a Republican, J.B. Van Hollen, he said it really isn't his job for Holder to give us advice on defending our constitutions any more than it's our role to give him advice on how to do his job. And while the Supreme Court struck down the Defense of Marriage Act, it has not weighed in on whether same-sex couples have a constitutional right to marry. That legal battle is going on right now. Van Hollen said Holder's analysis might make sense in rare cases related to state laws, but he said that in states that have passed constitutional amendments, attorneys general must defend them because there is no Supreme Court holding those amendments unconstitutional. If there's one clear-cut job I have, said Van Hollen, it's to defend my state's constitution. There's no one else in a position to defend the state constitution if it comes under attack. Colorado's Attorney General, John W. Suthers, a Republican, also warned about this kind of recklessness. He said, I personally oppose a number of Colorado's laws as a matter of public policy, and a few are contrary to my religious beliefs. But as my state's Attorney General, I have defended them all and will continue to do so. And in fact, the Republican state attorneys general responded to Holder today, and they issued the following statement. The Republican Attorneys General Association says as follows. A state attorney general has a solemn duty to the state and its people to defend state laws and constitutional provisions against challenge under federal law. To refuse to do so because of personal policy preferences or political pressure erodes the rule of law on which all of our freedoms are founded. A government that does not enforce the law equally will lead our society to disrespect the law, period. That's Luther Strange, Alabama Attorney General, again, speaking for the Attorneys General, Republicans. The chairman of the Republican Attorneys General Association, Chairman Alan Wilson, he said, this administration is repeatedly ignoring the rule of law. We're seeing the same thing happen with Obamacare as the Obama administration continues to pick and choose which parts of the law they will enforce and which they will delay without legislative action. Our freedom depends on upholding the rule of law and obtaining the consent of the governed. Republican attorneys general will continue to fight every single day to protect our Constitution and defend our state's rights. The Attorney General of Montana, Tim Fox, finally, he says, what General Holder is asking state attorneys general to do is accept a gratuitously offered non-binding legal opinion on an issue that has not been decided by a national court of competent jurisdiction at this time. The approach is as inappropriate as it is unprecedented. I don't ever remember an Attorney General of the United States urging state attorneys general to violate their oaths to uphold their state constitutions without a Supreme Court decision, a ruling that is contrary to what the states have done. Nothing. Nobody is denouncing this attorney general in Washington, D.C., in the big media. They just slough it off because they agree with him. They support his policy agenda, as they support Obama's, as they support Reid's and all the rest of it. So tyranny in defense of statism apparently is no vice.